Speaking of the phoenix, it is such a common myth that there are actually two Pokemon based on it, although Ho-Oh's origins can also be linked to another mythos, such as Achialapapa of the Pueblo peoples, as it was a giant rainbow-colored bird. We can also look to the Simurgh of Iranian mythology,
Just look
said
at
to look like a huge multicolored peacock able to
and the
carry off
grandpa
elephants. The Simurgh
who
is also known
tries
as the
to
Ember
see
Bird,
it.
and was thought to have been so old it's seen the world's destruction 3 times, apparently cheating death by plunging itself into fire. Just like a phoenix. Now on to Marowak. You know, the ground type. But lo and behold, the Alolan form is Fire Ghost. Gaining both Fire and
And
Ghost in
here's the
Alola is
Alolan
rather odd,
Marowak.
but with a bit of digging and
You may
reasoning, it
know
makes
this
sense for sure. First
Pokemon
off,
who belongs
Marowak
to
already looks kinda like a
Kiawe.
fire dancer minus the fire. It's got the mask, and it's got a stick. Known as the Fire Knife, this tool is used in Samoan dances to show off a warrior's skill. The Aztecs did it a lot too. But did you know that in Hawaii it was only brought over relatively recently? It's a tourist thing. Anyway, Marowak doesn't just get fire, but ghostly fire, which I'll explain in the ghost type video. Lastly in this category we have Fennekin, Braixen, and Delphox, which are based off of Fennec foxes. Now notably, Fennekin doesn't have any fire on it, but its dex
and
entry
its
states eating a
evolution.
twig fills it with energy, and its roomy ears give vent to
No
air hotter than
Fennekin,
390 degrees
and made
Fahrenheit.
up
It's
her
like a little
mom
furnace.
before
There's a fire going on inside of
she
it.
left
It
the
must be that
house.
fire-type
In
Pokemon
one
are able to
episode,
use
that is.
non-traditional sources of energy. Instead of being able to eat food, they are able to process wood and other materials, similarly to fire. Then Braixen's dex entry talks about how it ignites its twigs by using its tail for friction, and Delphox uses its psychic powers to control its fire. Thus, its stick is always on fire, thanks to its power of pyrokinesis. All of them are also based on Kitsune Mochi, similar to Vulpix and Ninetales, but more like a witch that was granted powers by a fox. And that wraps up Pokemon that have fire on them or on their sticks. The next category are fire Pokemon, which are fire because of a mythical creature or legend involved. Very common for Pokemon games. Now, I know that some we've already mentioned can be put in this category also, but I feel like Pokemon that literally have fire was a better category. So first up on this mythical list are Vulpix and Ninetales. These Pokemon's origins are found in ancient Eastern myths of the Kitsune, a Japanese legend of a fox with many tails which can breathe fire. Ninetales is based more specifically on Kyubi no Kitsune, which means an older silver fox. Believed to be their counterpart, we have Growlithe and Arcanine, two fire dog Pokemon known for their loyalty
And here's
and obedience. I mean, how else could
and
Officer
Growlithe,
Jenny have so many of them?
the
But under
tiger
that fluffy warm
Pokemon.
coat is the heart of a good boy. Just who wouldn't love to give them infinite belly rubs? Saul Wharton Stoic can
Yeah.
describe these two, which makes sense as
Gary
they are
and
based
Diana
off of the Chinese
owns
myth of
them.
Shia, or in Japanese, Komainu. Guardian statues, normally of lions, but with traits of dogs and tigers. They protect the entrances of many buildings and invite good luck. Unfortunately, that's not where they get their fire typing
Are
though, just
these
their
tiger
looks. You'll have to go a little
based
further north
on
to
them?
Korea, near Jiexi, and take a look for a guardian statue of the Haitei. Essentially, a fire-eating dog that was said to protect Seoul from natural disasters. Some legends actually depict it almost like a unicorn lion dog. Crazy stuff. Entei is the legendary beast that represents the fire that burnt down the Brass Tower. Friend to children in that one movie,
Fun
able to run pretty darn fast, and
Vente is one of the 6 heroes. So the rise of Otaku is kept the wrong one last year.
Entei is known to erupt into huge explosions of fire, much like a volcano, minus the lava. And if you take a look at Entei's face, it looks similar to Akagashira's face, a fire yokai. Lastly, it's Volcanion, the only fire-water type in the entire known
Here's
Pokemon
Volcanion.
world. Volcanion shares many similarities to Growlithe and Arcanine, having traits similar to Komainu and Shisha, particularly the Ryukyuan Shisha, where in legend there was an overabundance of fires. The townsfolk worried about their homes and approached a wise monk. He instructed them to build a great stone Shisha to protect the town and eat the fire. Volcanion's name also implies that it is powered by a volcano, which is a very large source of heat that often creates hot springs that steam up, hence the water fire type. But looking back to better Pokemon, our next category are in fact known to be made of lava or have magma inside of them. Slugma and Magcargo both are fire slugs, and Pokemon has always gotten the whole
and
lava
its
magma
evolution.
thing wrong. They just use the two terms kind of
What
willy-nilly.
an orange one.
Forgive them, I know it's slide. Being
She
made of
needs
lava
to
grants them their fire type. Interestingly, instead of blood,
keep
Slugma
the
uses
brave
super hot
vine
magma
going.
to circulate its oxygen. Weird, but okay. I can see that for a Pokemon. But I fully disagree with Magcargo's Pokedex entry. Magcargo's body temperature is approximately 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit. No! Just no. That opens up just a whole new set of problems. I mean, I have so many questions about that. Questions like, what? And how? Not to mention, why? All the questions. Numel and Camerupt, and its makeup. Numel is great because it's one of the few fire-type Pokemon that is not only they are based on
Numel
chemicals that
and
contain
its
magma
evolution.
inside of their pumps. Though I wonder, is it
Based
still magma if it's
on
on the side near its crust? That's the definition. Well, they are also ground type, so I'm going to say it's correct this time, Game Freak, but I'm not entirely sure how these
Blackline
Pokemon
Rangers
are able to
OC.
heat to keep the magma inside of it liquid. Magma's normal temperature, while liquid, is anywhere from 700 C to 1300 C, so it's pretty hot. Essentially,
the
1.5 to 2,000
for the
degree knives.
inspiration.
Remember those? I sure wish I didn't. Well, the heat magma gets is caused by the Earth's motion and pressure. So it's now assumed by me that Numel and Camerupt are either very good at squeezing their stomachs, or it has some other source of churning up the magma constantly, some sort of special internal muscles. Magby is not with its other evolutions, as it only has a flame pattern on its body rather than actual flames. Based off of a booby duck, they live near magma,
And this
and in
Pokemon
fact
is
sleep in it,
based
just like
on
their evolutions. They
a
also have
booby
magma-like blood that
duck.
helps them stay warm. What
Wait,
magma-like
what?
means in this case, I'm not so sure, though. Possibly like Slugma, I suppose. Heatran is primarily a
And here-
steel-type Pokemon
there's
that, due to
Heatran.
its own intense heat, seems to be partially molten. And we all know why it's here, the molten part. Typically, boiling blood is not hot enough to melt steel. I mean, even jet fuel can't do that. This Pokemon must be insane. Well, it does live in caves, lava tubes and such. And, well, Heatran seems to be more steel than fire. But it is still made primarily of superheated liquid metal. Well, parts of it. Otherwise, it would just be a puddle. A fire steel nut would be neat. Primal Groudon is pretty much the god of the ground. And who makes the ground go on? Well, Groudon. But in the real world, it's not that far off. Volcanoes create hundreds of islands every century. Adding in the fire type to Groudon by going primal really finishes off the idea that it created the land. In fact, I may say that he should have had fire all along. I mean, it's red. Kid me thought it was
This
fire, for
legendary.
sure, but adult me understands
A
that
fire
Primal Groudon was
Pokemon.
the one creating the ground, whereas Groudon now just sort of rules over the land. Much less creation these days. Alright, and the next category are Pokemon that are just based off of normal, plain old, everyday animals, but with a twist. Can you guess the twist? They can breathe fire, or are masters of fire moves. Flareon is one of the original evolutions, and
And here's Flareon.
what can I say?
One
It's fire type
the
because Eevee needed a fire type.
evolutions.
That's about it. Nothing fancy over here. Its origins are pretty weak. But don't write it off just yet.
What's that
The
one
Pokedex states that if
Pokemon
it inhales
Circus
deeply,
performer?
that's a sign
Is
it's about
that
to
the
attack. Prepared to be hit by flames of over
evolved
3,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
And
Other entries
so
talk about its internal
always
flame
lock
sac,
it
which
in.
may help shed some light on how Pokemon are able to store their fuel. In fact, Flareon's internal sac actually ignites when it's agitated, so these organs must be fireproof inside and out. In fact, I guess they are heatproof. The Pokemon ability heatproof is kind of just the default for fire-type Pokemon. They got the same numeric resistance. Torchic, Combuskin, Blaziken, and Mega B, as I like to call them, are based off of the Taiwanese cockfighting roosters. These chickens kick with no remorse. But other than expert fighters,
here's
these
Torchic,
chickens may also be based off of the Basan.
and
A
its
Basan is a
evolution.
large fire-breathing chicken in Japanese myth. Yep, so exactly like Blaziken. In fact, some illustrations depict the Basan in the exact same color palette. Orange and red feathers. Torkoal is based off of a coal-powered locomotive, and, well, and a tortoise.
And here's
It's stated that
Torkoal.
it battles using energy it gets from burning coal. When
The
using smoke from its
tortoise
nostrils, it
Pokemon.
lets off a sound that is similar to a locomotive horn. It's actually like a train horn. Pokemon are silly, but one thing about
Does it
Torkoal you
cry?
may not know is that if it is unable to find coal, it will stop moving, and then it will most likely starve in the wild. Next up are Salandit and Salazzle, two lizard Pokemon that really smell. Both meanings of smell in the same sentence. I must be a
And
genius.
these two
However, these
are the
Pokemon seem to
lizard
be a bit more
Pokemon.
poison than fire, as their acid is
One
so
of the
potent
teams
it's
go
able to
Grunso
affect
now.
normally unaffected types, meaning poison and steel type Pokemon. This could just be because of their fire, though, as steel is weak to fire, just not jet fuel based fire. But these lizards are commonly agreed to be based off of the Japanese fire belly newts. Yes, they exist. While not being able to breathe fire or acid gas, they do share the same colors and general shape. But these Pokemon also have salamander influences, which can also point to the fire typing, as well as Salazzle being female only, as there actually are a few species of salamanders that are only female. Tepig and Pignite are just kinda pigs that are red and
And here's
orange. Now, while
Tepig and
Tepig is the
Pignite.
brightest Pokemon to learn Heavy Slam, Pig Ninth Pokedex entry
It's a
goes into a little bit more detail of its fire
little
generation,
pig
stating that
Pokemon.
the more it eats, the more fuel it has to make the
I
fire
get
in
it.
its stomach
It's
stronger.
like fire,
This fills
but
it with
with
even more
pig.
power.
So
Assuming its
I
fire is in a little flame
guess
sack like the other
this might
Pokemon,
be some
we can
sort
get
of
an even better
fire
idea of how this
pig.
fire-breathing stuff works. It's almost like a pressure cooker inside of them that they fill with fuel. Now, most animals